Hey, everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio. You just heard Uptown Girls Blues, and that is from the brand new album, Eclectic-Electric by Blues Hall of Famer Joe-Louis-Walker. The album is coming out November 12th, 2021, so mark that date and pre-order. It's out through Cleopatra Records. I'll get that straight, Cleopatra Records. And you can go to Joe-Louis-Walker.com, and he's here with us today. Super excited to have you back, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
It's exciting. You've got another new album out. I mean, so is this, do you do one every year? Because what, you've got over 25 albums now, right?
Wow.
This is the 30th album since 1985.
Wow.
Of my own name. It don't include all the sessions and people's records that I played on. It doesn't include that. But like they say I'm like a man catching a plane when it comes to I stay a lot in recording mode, and I stay a lot in creativity mode, and I find it keeps me out of trouble. It keeps me sort of focused.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you got your albums, and then touring wise, I know last year you were on our show for a few minutes and then you were about to do a gig, and it's right after, well, COVID's still around, but music has opened up. So have you been out touring? How's it been on the road?
Yeah, we're doing it's a little bit more shows we're doing. I won't be touring proper until the middle of next month. The middle of next month when I start in near Pittsburgh, and then we go to Cleveland, and then some other places, Des Moines, Iowa, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Chicago, and then some places in Michigan. About 12 dates or whatever, and then come back here to the East Coast.
What was it like for you during COVID, like the big lockdown, not being out? And did you enjoy some downtime, or were you itchy to get back on the road?
Well, I just say this when I'm asked that question. I'm like millions of other people. It was extremely frustrating, of course, because we didn't know what was coming, we didn't know what's happening, and as you remember, I think when we talked last, there was not a vaccine. Okay, yeah, right. So we were in a mode of, oh, please give us a vaccine, please get the vaccine in a hurry, please get the vaccine in a hurry, and now we don't want to take it or whatever. So at any rate, be whatever the situation is, there was that stick hang over all of our heads, and so. And then there was the issue of opening in stages, and whatever profession was deemed as necessary to be, at the first, and then and music industry was deemed the last one to be able to open. To be quite honest, and that's true. Everybody knows that. That's why you waited this long for concerts. That's why the Stones canceled their tour. That's why everything got pushed back. It's a makeup date. It's a makeup. Then it became canceled. You remember it was cancellation. And to be quite honest, we're still having that right now. So, I mean, when people say, oh, the music industry's back, I think Garth Brooks would disagree with you. He just canceled something like 60 shows at stadiums that would have been packed. The first show he did was 65,000 people.
Wow.
So, I mean, can you imagine yourself with that kind of a commerce coming in, counting on that, and having I would say the caring enough for your fellow man to say, hey, you know what? I can make that much money. But since we ain't all on the same page right now, I don't want to take the chance of one person getting COVID. And for that, I will forever take my hat off to Garth Brooks. There's a lot of people out here now doing it that I know personally, starting with one of the biggest groups in the world, that out there getting that money now. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about too. And it's interesting with that, because I know we travel, we're on the road 100%, and COVID, it's like, well, so we travel, and it's been up and down, and we went, I mean, it's been almost 2 years of detours nonstop. You think you're going here, that train's closed. You're
and it's
Yeah, it's
It's
detours, but it's been interesting. I think I don't know, it's more of a reflective time. We
it's
all
a
kind of have to get down to some real stuff.
it's a test, like a detour. Now what are you going to do? And you have to come up with something.
But
So you
can you
stretch.
imagine? Can you imagine? When I talked to you guys last year, I was supposed to be in Poland last time.
Yeah.
Okay. This year, I was supposed to be in Poland. Couldn't go
Oh,
for the same sort of reasons. Okay.
yeah.
Somebody else went in my stead. Okay. They just got somebody to come and do that who was already over there. Okay. So
Mm,
now what you have with friends of mine like Peter Noble, one of the
mm,
biggest, probably the biggest festival in the world, the Byron Bay
Yeah, yeah.
mm.
Blues Festival. Peter canceled. Then he rescheduled this whole festival. Everybody's on that festival. When I did it last time, I've done it 3 or 4 times. I was on me, Bob Dylan, the Parliament Funkadelic, the
Oh
Wailers,
man.
Yusu
Wow.
Endure, Robert Plant. Everybody does this. We're
Wow.
all together. Okay. Can you imagine having that type of power
Mm,
and then saying, oh, I got to cancel it? So now what Peter's done, it's all Australian artists, Australia, New Zealand. Can you blame them? No.
No.
mm,
Obviously it's not going to have the bona fides as you would have a Bob Dylan or
mm,
a Neil Young or you know what I'm saying? But he's
mm.
able to keep the music going on. So can you imagine, like you guys were saying, you know, you were traveling around, but can you imagine being an agent and a manager sitting booking 30, 40 shows and then having to reschedule, then
Oh yeah.
reschedule
Yeah.
again,
It
and
it,
then
it
cancel some, and
it
then
affects
reschedule.
everything.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
affects the
yeah.
tourism industry. That's something we
You
work with
better believe it.
closely. It
Yeah.
affects everything, and
It
but
does.
it is for the health of the people, and so we have to do things differently. And thank God you're putting albums out because we still want new music. So a lot of writing has been going on.
Hmm.
In this album,
I
Eclectic
love this.
Electric. I love this. And you've got some good covers in there that I wouldn't have thought. The Werewolves of London, we're going to play that. I wouldn't have thought of you playing that, but it's, it's interesting because you're playing things that, yeah, you would think, oh, it's only the blues, but you got things going on. You've got all kinds of funk. You've got some R&B. You've got some just classic rock vibes in this album. What led you to put all these other songs in there on top of your own? I love Uptown Girl Blues. And Regal Blues is one of my favorite too. Got to give a shout out to BB
Well,
there.
you know, if anybody's followed my career, they know that I'm was born in San Francisco. I
Mm.
went to junior high school half block from the Film Auditorium. I grew up in the Fillmore district before the hippies got there. You know, where I lived in, and then when I moved to the Ashbury district, we that was all part of our Fillmore district
Mm.
before the hippies came there. So I mean, I had my battle of the bands at the Film Auditorium. So when I was kids, I seen all that. I got to see Little Richard there, James Brown before he got a brand new bag.
Wow.
On and on and on and on. The Temptations, the real Temptations.
Oh,
Mm,
When My
awesome.
Girl came out. So we were like a movie called Cooley High. Okay, this was we were like Harlem in the 30s. So
Mm.
when the Rita Development Agency moved all of us out of our neighborhood and took all of our Victorians and gave us
Oh,
what did they call it? They gave us a voucher to move back because they moved us all to the projects. Needless to
oh,
say,
what?
they took our they took our Victorians, which we had all fixed up from the inside out, and moved them to Nob Hill. That made Nob Hill very expensive. Tore down all the Fillmore. I just seen a picture of it, like a bomb
wow.
hit. And then when they started redoing it, they call it the Western Addition. And then they moved us out. All our cultural, we had 500 to 500 businesses there. We had clubs. We played 5 nights a week. All gone. I've seen pictures of Louis Armstrong, all these guys, Edward G. Robinson in our neighborhood. I remember when Vincent Price came to the Fillmore. And, you know, so we all mixed and mingled together. But when Bill Graham got Charles Sullivan, the brother that owned the Fillmore, gave it to Bill Graham, and the hippies came there, it changed our neighborhood. Not only that, we didn't have a where to go back to. So instead of me going
Wow.
back to the Victorian that my dad helped build, and fixed, I ended up living in the projects. Okay, so
Mm.
it was sort of type of thing. So to answer your question, my music since day one has always been infused by growing up in San Francisco. I didn't grow up in Jackson, Mississippi. I didn't grow up in Chicago. I didn't grow up in Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up in a very diverse, tolerant society. So where I lived was Japanese, Black, Jewish, Hispanic. All of us lived in the same area. The Fillmore came out of that. And so my music is infused of everything from where I lived, seeing the old blues guys when I was coming up, Mississippi Fred McDowell, London Hopkins, blah, 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 Muddy Water, along with seeing the Yardbirds every 2-3 months. All the English guys they must have had a straight plane that went straight to San Francisco in the Film Auditorium. I got to see the Yardbirds with Jimmy Page, with Jeff Beck, with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, see Love, see Jimmy, see on and on and on and on and on. So that's what my music comes out of. It just so happens that my mother tongue is the blues. I'm known for the blues. It's the box that I fit in. I'm not complaining about that. But it's just like saying me as, it's Joe-Louis-Walker, the blues guy. And I always say this to people, if in some hypothetical world, alternative universe, if 6 guitar players walk in the room, Jimi Hendrix, Django Reinhardt, Charlie Christian, B.B. King, Glenn Campbell, Waddy
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie doesn't walk into the room and say, "Hi, I'm Stevie Ray, the blues." Chuck Berry doesn't walk in the room, say, "Hey, I'm Chuck Berry, the blues." John Lennon doesn't walk in the room and say, "Hey, I'm John Lennon, the beat." Everybody walks in the room and say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so guitar player." And then just to do you one better, and I'll leave it alone. What are they all gonna play? What's the common denominator? They're gonna play the blues. They're gonna play the blues. They're not gonna play Bach's Fugue number 10. They're not gonna play Eleanor Rigby. John Lennon didn't play on Eleanor Rigby anyway. The Pride of John's Life I didn't play on that song. I just sang on it. If John Lennon had to play on Eleanor Rigby, it would have never got done. He didn't play all them chords. He just played, he was a 3-chord guy. Yeah, I mean, of course he could write other type of things. But my point is that nobody really, musicians don't use those labels, mostly. You know, and they may call B.B. King the king of the blues. I guarantee you, if you put on a jazz record and you put on B.B. King playing jazz, you would faint. I guarantee you. And if you put on George Benson playing jazz and then George Benson playing blues, you would faint because the roles are reversed. I know them both. You know.
Well, why? Well, I think the industry always pigeonholes people into this is what you are. I mean, that's why we're the blend, because everything is connected and music is connected. Blues, like you're saying, blues. I mean, blues is like I always feel like blues is the roots of it. I just recorded an interview with a Northern Ireland guitarist, Pat McManus, and he's like, we're in Northern Ireland. You bet we had the damn blues out there. But he listens to everything. We ended up talking about ABBA for 10 minutes. Who, you wouldn't think you're talking to a blues artist about ABBA. He goes, when it's good, period. It doesn't matter what it is, you know?
Yeah. Well, listen to all the groups that you grew up that you like. Okay. The biggest group. Let's just take the biggest one, the Beatles. The Beatles grew up listening to, we all know, every English group and their mama. Chuck Berry, Chuck Berry, Chuck Berry, Chuck Berry, Chuck Berry, Chuck. Okay. I mean, just be honest. From the Beatles doing Roll Over Beethoven. Just you name it.
Yeah.
You name it. They did them all. To the Stones doing Round and Around and Come On and Old Carol and all. Then them having to. No, but we're talking about rock and roll. The stuff that made those guys, the stuff that they listened to. When the Beatles did You Really Got a Hold on Me, the Smokey Robinson song, or when they did Words of Love. A lot of Americans had no idea who Buddy Holly had done Words of Love. A lot of Americans had no idea about Smokey Robinson doing You Really Got a Hold on Me. We did. in my neighborhood, but a lot of people didn't. No, seriously. So when the English guys came over doing the blues and doing rock and roll, you know, and they asked John Lennon, well, John, what do you want to see? And he said, Muddy Waters. And 200 newsmen said, well, where's the Muddy Waters at? And John Lennon said, well, you stupid Yanks, you don't even know your own heroes. He's right.
Yeah.
To this day.
What is it
Most
about
pe-
musicians having to go overseas all the time, especially when it comes to the blues? And I mean rock and roll, not, you know, electronic
Well-
ding dings. You know, I mean, you know, like what is it that blues roots musicians have to go overseas a lot of times, and especially England and Europe? They're more accepted and appreciated more than here sometimes. That's what I'm just saying from all the interviews we do. It's like that's everyone's got to go to Europe. What is that? I mean, is it America's just I mean, I grew up on the European side in Africa and South Africa and Kenya. So all the music we got was from that distribution. And then we got music from Africa, and I'm sorry,
That's
but that's
cool.
some good stuff, you know?
That's
So
some really
Absolutely.
good
yeah,
stuff.
so can't complain on that. But what is it about Europe versus here for our musicians? And I think for European musicians, a lot of times they have to come here.
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, and I can, you know, speak with a lot of the gentlemen icons that I met. You know, people like Muddy Waters, B.B. King, guys that went over there for the first time for blues. You know, who introduced the blues over there, Willie Dixon, people like that. And I guess, like Muddy Waters said, you know, it took his English boys, it took my English boys to bring my music over here for my own people in America to recognize me. And I just always say like this: America likes its reflection in a mirror. So if you want to ask why Elvis Presley's version of Hound Dog is bigger than Big Mama Thornton's, I bet half of your audience has never heard Big Mama Thornton's version of Hound Dog. If you want to ask why Ball and Chain is bigger by Janis Joplin than Big Mama Thornton, I bet you half your audience has never heard Big Mama. If you want to ask why Mystery Train by Little Junior Parker and the Blue Flames is bigger than Elvis, half your audience has never heard Little Junior Parker. And I can go on like this forever and ever. And so what happens is that I always say, you know, it's all right. When music hits somebody, it hits them.
Yeah.
You know, Elvis Presley grew up in the projects, okay, in Tupelo, Mississippi. All right. It hit, that's what he heard. It was natural for him to play it. When you get to someone like Pat Boone covering Tutti Frutti, or you get to Pat Boone covering and letting the record out a week before Little Richard, letting the records to intentionally take any chances they had of them being able to cross over, then you into a different, it's not the same reason that John Lennon did, hey, Junior, behave yourself, bad boy. That's not the same. John Lennon did Larry Williams, and I bet you 90% of your audience don't know who Larry Williams is, but they know the Beatles version of Bad Boy, but they don't know Larry Williams' version. Well, in England, they know Larry Williams' version.
See, but that's the weird,
because the Beatles covered it.
Yeah, see, but
he said Pat Boone on our radio show.
Pat Boone. I mean, what the heck was that anyway? But it's like when we lived in England, they said to us, and I'm not knocking anyone, because like, you know, everyone's got their music, and if it's making people happy, that's good. Like, you know. But when we lived there, was what, in the 80s sometime, in the 80s for about a year and a half, and they said, we've got Cliff Richard, and he's England's answer to Elvis.
Elvis Presley.
And I'm like, what's
and
that?
We're like,
what's that? What's that? You know, and then you've got to think, you know, and a lot of people think Elvis brought, you know, rock and roll and the blues out. And I'm like, I always thought, where did he learn it from? And I think that's where, if you're a real music, you know, fan, and you always go, well, where did this come from? What influenced? You know what I mean? It's you got to look back.
It's real simple. All you got to do is go on to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Not LinkedIn. Go on. They have all the pictures, and if you notice, I've got at least pictures. Elvis with Mahalia Jackson, Elvis with Junior with BB King, two in those pictures.
Mm.
Elvis with little Junior Parker, who did the original Mystery thing. Elvis with Bobby Blue Bland. Okay,
Mm.
Elvis with Leslie Uggams.
Bobby.
Elvis all the time with Jackie Wilson. Elvis with the Clara Ward singers. Elvis with Muhammad Ali. Elvis was around more black people than I was around. Okay, so music was natural to Elvis.
Mm.
He went to the Peabody Hotel when it was segregated. He could not sit in the audience. He would stand on the side of the stage. There's a million pictures. All you got to do is Google Elvis and BB King, Elvis and Little Junior, and you'll see, wait a minute, man. This guy here, Elvis and Jim Brown, Elvis and Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali. Okay? Now, if you are Elvis is so steep in my culture, and you know, I know this for a fact because I had the good fortune to play with his band and to have the Jordanaires
Wow.
who sang background on my records. So I played with Scotty
Awesome.
Moore and DJ Fontana quite a bit.
Oh.
Scotty produced me. The Jordanaires were on 2 or 3 of my records. So I know a little bit of the story, you know, and so
That's awesome.
what Scotty Moore said was, Joe, me and Carl Perkins, we didn't want to play hard country. We wanted to play blues, but we couldn't play blues any better than the blues guys. So we came up with rockabilly. Whereas you had a blues guy that wanted to play country music, and he took a song called Ida Red and called it Maybelline. Had a hit record. Had a tour book to play all the country clubs. Where the country music played. First country music club he went to, he said, I'm the guy play Ida Red. No, you ain't, son. You ain't that guy. You ain't playing here. Well, who's the guy made Ida Red? Chuck Berry. Well, I'm Chuck Berry. You're gonna play Ida Red. You can play Ida Red all you want. You can play Maybelline all you want. It's a hit here, but you ain't playing it in here. So Chuck Berry invented what? Rock and roll. Okay? Every song that Chuck Berry wrote had what words in it? What words? Rock and roll.
Rock and roll
Every
and everything. He branded it, man.
Okay, here's a guy that put rock and roll in every song that went around the world. Here's a great practitioner, Elvis, that never wrote a song in his life. So regardless who you want to call the king of rock and roll in your world, like John Lennon said, if they had to name rock and roll another name, there wasn't no name for it, he said, we'd be calling it Chuck Berry.
I agree.
They wouldn't have been calling it nobody else. They wouldn't call it Little Richard. They wouldn't call it Bo Diddley, Fats Domino. They'd call it Chuck Berry. And, you know, that's just the truth. You know, there's no shame in that.
No.
Who are you listening to growing up? Who are you listening to?
Well, I was fortunate. You know, my dad came from Cleveland, Mississippi. So I got to hear all the blues guys every day. My dad came home from work, sit me on the table. I'd sit on the table. If I was a good boy and I hadn't acted up, he'd let me listen to everything. Sonny Boy Williamson, Harlem Whoop, blah, blah, blah. He drummed it in my head. My mother, BB King, BB King, BB King, BB King, and 5 brothers and sisters. I got all the trickle down. 9 step brothers and sisters floating around. I got all the trickle down. 4 cousins that had a band. When I got old enough, I got in the band. Okay. So I had a good education, but my mom did something smart with me. She said, okay, when I got 12, says you're playing guitar a little bit, but you're gonna have to sacrifice something. So like all your friends, your brothers and your cousins, them, they going out there playing football and basketball and going to this girl's house and that on Saturday. You are going to a music teacher. That's if you want the guitar. If you don't want it, you ain't going. You want to go play sports like everybody else? But she told me, she said, like my English teacher told me, she said, Joe, anybody can play sports. Can't anybody play the guitar?
Oh,
you know.
I have to say, my brother was a gymnast, and my dad was very disappointed that he wasn't interested in football. And he said, sports are games. The rest of the world is full of art. Get used to it. So I have to say,
your dad also punched your brother out for saying that too.
I know, but still, and he became California state champion in gymnastics. But there was that thing about sports is be all end all, and I think it's because of the revenue sports brings in on television.
Yeah,
maybe. that is why sports seems
Well,
to cloud the arts sometimes.
it's a good um way, speaking personally, you know,
Mm.
being when my dad put me in Catholic school in 1956, just speaking personally, I was
Mm.
one of 3 Black kids who went to the first ones in that school that day. Okay, and this is a school of like 300 people. So I mean, once I got through being called everything but a child of God in Catholic school, once I got through being hit in the face with a lunch pail, once I got through with protecting myself and
Oh
bringing my
man.
cousins down there, we all got together over one thing. The priest loved all my cousins and all of us who could play sports. And so instead of us
That's
fighting each
funny.
other, the priests got together and, of course, put all the brothers in the CYO, and all the white guys were like, oh man, we always did want a 6'2" center. Well, that was my cousin. Okay. And you're only in the 6th grade, 8th grade, you know.
Mm.
So sports does that. It can bring you together.
Yeah.
The only thing I think music outweighs a lot of things is that music not only brings you together, it gives you an avenue for expression, self-expression that can inspire millions and millions of people, that
Right.
can bring about a benefit. We can do benefit concerts and could raise awareness about things. We can do things that sports, in a way, just learned how to do with the advent of someone like Muhammad Ali. He's the one that brought political stuff into sports that really, I always say about anybody that's a first or anybody that's a right, you stick to your guns being right. You either you're gonna die or you're gonna get killed, or your career is gonna suffer. Well, his career suffered, but look at the
He's
just
still here.
just look at the trajectory of Muhammad Ali in this
Yeah.
country.
The legacy.
Let's kill him. 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 We love 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 him.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the same guy. He never
Yeah.
changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Never, ever changed. Sports changed. And so now you go from Muhammad Ali to other people now who are sports, who use it as a platform to say things.
Yep.
For good things and for not so good things.
Yeah.
You know, and so but music's always had that, and also music's cathartic. You know, you can take someone who's a rough customer, and by the end of their career, they're telling people, imagine there's no borders. Imagine there. Well, that same guy that wrote that, he was pretty much a skinhead when he was a young guy. He was
Yeah.
angry at the whole world, and so you can get that. You know, you can get someone like a Marvin Gaye saying, "What's going on?" And everybody in the world that's heard that song is transformed. You can get someone like a Bob Marley, you know, who can put, I call it the iron fist in a velvet glove.
Yeah.
3 people, Bob Marley, Smokey Robinson, and Curtis Mayfield, could put some of the hardest lyrics in a song, especially for this country, and not pay any price because of the way that they do it. With Bob, he didn't care. Bob didn't care. Let's just admit. Bob said, I shot the sheriff. I did it. I did it. Okay.
But I didn't shoot the deputy.
But I didn't shoot the deputy.
But Bob was
Believe it or
also
not.
about taking your
Yeah.
own self-responsibility, I think. In his music, if you listen, he's like, you know, it's about you and your mind. No one else can free your mind but yourself. You've got to take initiative. You've got to think. You've got to get together. He was kind of like a self-help guru in a way through his
Well,
music and his words, I think.
I can say for a fact, you know, I lived in Jamaica for a while. I was all over the country, all over the world. You know, when someone like Bob Marley hit, it raised the empowerment of a lot of African descent people. You know, I mean, when Angola and Zimbabwe, well, you know, if he was in Africa,
Yeah.
when they got the colonialists left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe insisted Bob Marley come and sing the song because he wrote the song Zimbabwe. So Bob was more than just, you know, self-help. Bob was about African people's pride,
Oh,
and
big
he
time.
was unapologetic about it.
Yep.
I don't think Bob Marley could have been an American and did what he did. Just to be quite honest,
He
there
was,
are
I think he was straight up real. I mean,
yeah, he was
there's
up there.
there's anger in there. Then you have, the Whalers there, and it just there. When I grew up in South Africa, his son came out and played at one of the festival we put on, and it was like, it just for even young white kids, and I'm American, not like the Dutch or the British, and there was drama with them, and
Oh, God.
there was just everyone was fighting with each other, and yet when
Yeah.
you sit down and talk to each person, everybody makes sense one-on-one, but you put them in the same room, man, you're gonna have a powwow.
Like,
you
it's
know?
like
It's like,
cats.
but
Throw the cats in the middle. and
yeah,
put
but
one dog in.
Bob Marley had this unification with everyone. When Bob Marley came on, everybody stopped their crap and just started just digging
Mhm.
the music. And I think that is a power, because everybody knew what was going on. As young people, we were tired of it. As white kids, we didn't
Yeah,
want
yeah,
what
yeah,
was
yeah,
going on. We didn't. I mean,
yeah,
I lived through the time where they changed apartheid, and at that point,
In
we didn't want
Kenya.
it. And now everyone, I look at all my friends from high school, their kids, everyone's together. It's more unified. I mean, you still have your people that the people that don't want to be, right, and will never, some
yeah.
will just be there, but we put them on their own island and ship them off. But he
I
had
know what
this
you mean.
unity, and I think he
Mm.
was part of. I mean, when his son came out and performed, it was just like it just was like it was solidified everything at that point. I think he just was such a huge thing for the younger generation that he spoke to
Mm.
all of us, no matter what color we were or what background
Yeah.
we were from.
Yeah.
And it helped
Well,
us all shift and move forward in that
well,
country.
the optimum thing that you got to remember, especially guys like me, that have it. I've experienced different. I have a different experience than you do.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
that
Sure.
it's not a problem of white and black. It's a problem of right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get a problem of when you appeal to someone's sense of right, and they have that in their heart, what should be right, then it doesn't make the difference what the other person's sexual preference or his skin color is or his religion is.
Exactly.
Right is right. If right
Mm.
is right for you, it's right for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If wrong is wrong for you, it's wrong for me.
Yeah.
So now,
Mm.
if we have a minority rule, it's bad. It's bad for everybody. Minority rule is bad for everybody. Okay, it should be one man, one woman, one vote. So if you're holding people down because you don't want them to have that vote, just say that's what it is. Well, that's what apartheid did. But in other places around the world now, that's sort of trending in that direction. Then we have, unfortunately, I think me and a lady friend of mine who grew up in the '60s are talking, and we just talking about what's going on with her reproductive rights situation.
Oh God, in
And
Texas too.
she just turned to me and she says, we she says, we got to fight this battle again. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Mm.
I did every benefit coming from San Francisco, every benefit for women's rights you could. When I moved to New York area 15 years ago, the first thing I did was for the battered women of Woodstock.
Oh,
People, is there really battered women in Woodstock? Hey man,
There's battered
it's
women
battered women
everywhere.
everywhere, bro.
Everywhere. That's
Everywhere.
global, man.
Well,
you know,
thank you for doing the benefit. Thank you for bringing light to it. Hey man, women have been trying to tell you this since God left Chicago.
yeah.
It's like this is the situation.
Mm.
So if you want to, in some kind of way, contribute to raising awareness to it, because you'll never know what it's like. I'll never know what it's like. Just like nobody will never know what it's like to sit in my shoes. I won't know what it's like, but I can empathize and I can go and lend my art and my talent to it. And that's what I do. That's my way of
Yeah.
dealing with it.
Mm.
That's my way. It's simple as that,
I think most of the like having lived in several parts of Africa and then coming back home here and seeing there's, I call it fear, which is based
Yeah.
on insecurity, which is always
Yeah.
based on, I don't want to use the word ignorance, but it's not knowing, not researching, not
Understanding.
learning what the real deal is. It's just taking somebody else's opinion, making it your own, and grouping together in fear, as opposed to grouping together to let's change things and make it better for everybody, not just this section of the population or that section of the population. It's more, it really is the insecurity thing.
Well, I think I always say, that it's fear. It's usually fear, fear, and people can use fear to manipulate and what have you. But you can educate people, and you can educate them. When I grew up, I learned about Columbus. I'm a history buff.
God, it's
want to learn
Columbus
about.
Day. Apparently, we're recording this on Columbus Day when it's no longer
Yeah,
Columbus Day.
or
Screw Columbus.
indigenous
It's
People Day.
American. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Indigenous
but
People Day.
I'm just saying that when I went to school, I had to learn about Columbus. I had to learn, and then I'm a curious person, so I wanted to learn more about the inner working. So I just did this Saturday. I did the indigenous peoples for the Abenaki tribe up in Stowe, Vermont, and the Abenaki tribe is they're definitely related to the survival of the Pilgrims coming to America.
Wow.
They were one of the very first who helped, but then they got hip to what was going on, so they sort of they got they started protecting themselves, so to speak. But it was my grandmother being Native American, I know a little bit about it, not as much as I should, but I've done a few of these in the last 2 months. I did the Center for the Seneca tribe up near Rochester, Buffalo, New York, with the elders up there, and so I'm not very knowledgeable as I should be, but I am a history buff, and I do know that if someone wants to really learn, they can. They can't learn if, as always, the political system says, well, we can't teach you that because of a critical thinking or something, or putting a name on it, a tag that really, oh my God, it's gonna vilify Heather. She's gonna feel bad about herself. Well, it's my understanding that information really empowers you. So if Heather or Timmy or whoever, when they're 6 or 7 years old, and they not only learn about Columbus coming to America and all that good story, and they could also learn that it wasn't very good for the Indians when he came.
Right.
You should learn both, and then it makes you a little bit more.
Exactly.
But if you tell somebody, we can't teach you, you think we're really going to teach you about Surgeon of Truth and Harriet Tubman? It's no, we're not going to teach that. That's going to make Heather feel bad about herself. In a way, it should make all Americans feel good about themselves, because it's the American dream. It's freedom. Ain't that what we're supposed to be about?
Exactly.
I think we're still learning that. We're still on that
I
learning.
think you're right.
But it is true. I mean, it's right now, I feel like, the whole thing with this country it is about education, and it's about us seeking the knowledge and having that interest instead of being up in arms, literally, about everything. We should start to seek that knowledge a bit more. Talking about, Native American culture, we go to a lot of events, festivals, filming musicians, everything. And there's a lot of, nowadays you go to if people go to folk festivals, it's about people, right? And the different cultures, like in Louisiana, I met a Native American lady. Her tribe only has 600 people left in their tribe. I mean, that's not a lot when you think back, to how tribes were prolific, and she was telling us her culture, her history, and she had this quiet little voice, this elder lady. And she was teaching us all about her baskets and how her grandfather was taking their alphabet and trying to restore the alphabet and trying to get their languages down so that they can continue to be, on document. And it's been hard to do because everything's so oral and musical too.
Well, it was hard to do also.
We can all do that.
It was hard to do also. This subject came up this weekend up at the Abenaki tribe. Is that the elder, he told me, Joe, most of the young people don't know about our culture. Right. And it says a lot of things I don't know, because my father and all of them had what they call Indian, they would do your mind to
Yep.
have you have Western ways.
Yep.
And right now there's a big situation in Canada where they're finding all these graves,
These
you
women
know,
too. Oh,
of yeah. And so you have this, you know, that situation, and that gets into the very uncomfortable thing of stating that case and having people feel guilty, you know, like, you know, if you talk about slavery, say, well, I didn't have a slave. I understand that, man. You know, I mean, you know, here's me and you, here's where me and you coexist. Here's where we connect. You didn't have a slave, but maybe my great grandpa, and that money kept on flowing, or kept on flowing. I wasn't able to get any inheritance, blah 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 blah, because my great grandparents was owned by your great
yeah.
grandparents, and you know what they got from mine? They got 90, 100, 200, 300, 400 years of free labor. See what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So now I'm not vilifying anybody about anything. Believe me, I know this
Yeah.
is America, and Lord have mercy. Woo! But the thing is that we did pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. My dad and all of we bought those Victorians in San Francisco. We rebuilt them, and
Damn.
we got relocated just like the Indians did,
I
and we
did.
didn't
This
get
is crazy.
compensated. So, you know, I
That's
think
crazy.
I think that music is a conduit to really helping that. I think more musicians and people like yourself and us all, you know, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story. So you know, just one person may have this glaring on it. Some people have a little bit of a more of a story, maybe. But my thing is that when the music you were talking about, Marley, and how the young people of all kinds pull together, the music has that power
Yeah.
to bring us all together. Now, I mean, listen to this. If you wasn't into the blues, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, probably.
Well, I love the blues, man, and
yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
I know,
you
but
see
it's
what I'm
like,
saying.
but you're so right. If you listen, you know, growing up as a kid in Kenya, then England, South Africa. So when we hit England, it was the punk era, and it was like crazy. The Clash were going, and everything was like, you know, the Pretenders were, you know, there it was all that, and I'm like, okay, well, to me that was tribal music because you just came out of Kenya. We lived with two different tribes out in the bush, at one part of our life, and everybody had, you know, piercings and hair things going on. So I'm like, well, this is great. I'm at home. And we got on a train from London to northern
that
England.
was so funny.
And I get on the train, and the conductor is black. I walk up to him. I look at him. I'm like, okay, I don't know what tribe he is. I don't know how to address him. So I said, "What tribe are you?" And by golly, he didn't like that.
Like you was crazy.
He didn't like
just
it.
like, I said, "What tribe are you?" He just looked at me like, "Oh hell!"
And then
you're going.
He gave me daggers.
But you know, I was
like
a little
he
kid.
looked at me like I was the worst mother on earth because she asked what tribe he was.
But that was respect, you know, because then, you know, different tribes, you don't look in people's eyes. Some you look down, some you do.
It wasn't respect.
You know, there's all of these things. But anyway, so going from there, so we had this English thing going on. Nancy always like kept me with the Beatles and the Stones and all of that. Then we get to South Africa, man, and we've got, oh my God, Johnny Clegg. Like he was another one who, dude, he really did so much. But to get into the blues, it was, I felt like we were in a country of blues. And it was only like, you know, Eric Clapton and all that was big, but there was more of the I don't want to say commercial, but it was just different. Coming over the States and hearing the blues, then we got it, that it's everything. To me, it's everything. And then you hear the influence in everyone's music, like Carlos Santana, he's blues, no matter what, he's still blues, you know, everyone's blues. But just as a kid growing up, South Africa, you listen to the women sing, like Miriam. I mean, geez, her voice. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah, I love it all.
That's
I love
it. So I think it has the roots. It's depth. In everyone, that those roots.
It's got depth.
There's a depth, and there's a
it's got depth
knowing.
And meaning.
And I think that's why people connect so much. Everyone has had something. They got to feel, and there's a knowing, and when you listen to music, it'll either take you down some road you've never been on, or it's on a road that's familiar, and no one's going to pick on you about it.
Yeah, well, sometimes.
Well, yeah, you're writing it, so you get that, baby. But we dig
Yeah.
your music. This album is fantastic. Uptown Girl Blues. That I think a lot of guys go through that.
Well,
But
I don't know,
yeah.
your music it reminds me of my brother and I, when my parents thought we were in bed asleep, and we crawl out the window, dress
Yeah.
on the outside of the house, and go walk Sunset Strip. Because it wasn't that far. We saw a lot. And then we'd sneak back in the morning, and they had no idea. I don't think my mother ever knew that we were gone for so long and what we did. And all we did, we didn't do anything wrong.
you said that when it was
We
all she wants to
just-
do is dance on that song. She's like,
Exactly.
that's the Sunset Strip
That's
song.
the
And
music.
I'm like,
That's
what?
where you sneak out the window and you go watch other people doing stuff. And we used to see the weirdest things on Sunset Strip. It was just like one time I saw a lady with a dog leash and her boyfriend was on his hands and knees with a collar on crossing the road. And I was like, dude,
Hey.
that's odd.
You got to
That's
see
weird.
everything, Joe.
Did you come to
on.
San Francisco? You should have came to San Francisco.
Well, we did a bit out there,
dude.
but
It's
I
a
mean,
long
you-
walk.
More than that.
when you perform, do you ever look out at the audience to see what's going on out there?
I look for the person that's having the most fun, and
Yeah.
I try to always concentrate on that. I never look at a person that may be sort of tight or whatever, because I find that for me is when I look at someone that's smiling, that's having a good time, then I have a tendency to smile, and if the music is making them smile and feel good,
Yeah.
and they return that to me, then we got a double positive going. And so that gets sort of infectious. Just in the same token, if you're looking at somebody that's sitting there like they lost their puppy, they may be going through all kind of stuff that you don't know about. So you may think they don't like the music and they're loving it, but you may have struck a nerve with something that you sang in a song. I got a mind to give up living and go shop. Maybe somebody in their family had issues with something with that nature. So I always try to focus on the people that are having a good time, but also leave myself open to not really get bent out of shape if somebody is really looking like they're, maybe thinking deep thoughts, and I don't know what it is. It's like one of the cool things about doing this, and you've seen with really big artists, that big artists can go and play for 65,000 people and manipulate the whole audience just by doing this, just by doing this, just by doing that, and I know those artists. I know them, and I ask them, what does this mean? What does that mean, Nick? Nick, what do that mean? It don't mean anything. What it means is that we can all do something together. And in this day and age, in any day and age, when you get 65,000 people that can all do something together, that ain't being paid, that ain't being lied to, and that can enjoy it in music,
That's
you
awesome.
are doing something that everybody's going to remember.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to remember, not something that everybody wants to forget.
Yeah.
So that to me is cool.
Well, that's the say about Alzheimer's patients and patients with dementia. If you play the music and they recognize the songs, they may not recognize the words or who did what and who wrote it, or they remember the experience from that music. Joy, they felt joy if that was their wedding song, or a song that was popular when they were a kid or something. They will feel that same feeling again, and that to me is just hugely powerful too. Because they need to be happy. We need to be happy until it's time to transition. We should still be happy when we transition.
Hey, from your words to God's ears,
we got to have some happiness.
I wish it could be like that.
So now talking about there's a power of the crowd and the audience. There's that energy, but then there's the energy of performing with different people in this album, Eclectic-Electric. Say that 10 times real fast. You've got a lot of friends on this album. Tell us, I know we're going to play Werewolves of London, so you've got some good people on there. You got good people on the whole thing. So were you playing together, or was this something with COVID that you had to do over
with
the
COVID,
internet?
we couldn't.
Yeah.
With COVID, we couldn't. There was no way we could do that. So when I put Baby Doyle on there, Baby Doyle played on Tribute to a King.
Yeah.
I call him Baby Doyle because he was a little baby when
Yeah.
I first met him. And Jimmy Vivino, my friend, he dropped in on Uptown Girl Blues. He was in L.A., but we couldn't. At the time, I don't even think you could fly too much. So
Mm.
in that context, we couldn't be in the room together. Same with Waddy, Werewolves in London. But the last record we did, Blues Coming On, it had way more people on it, and we could be. Some of us were in the room together. Me and John Sebastian, me and Jim Sultan, and some of us, we were all in the room together. But for this record, that record was made before the pandemic hit, although it was let out during the pandemic.
Yeah, Blues on.
So so
Blues
this one
Coming On.
is this one was made during the pandemic, so it had some of the tracks had been done before, but I had to finish the tracks. But the one with the guests, there was no way that we could be on because the pandemic was hitting.
Mm. So do you miss that? Like you have another album working on? Because to me, it still sounds electrically live. You still have that energy, and to be able to do that, that's what's so amazing to me.
Most of the musicians, most of us were all in the room together.
Yeah.
It was just the guest. We just left a little space for the guests to do their thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So that's why you got the energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The cohesiveness of Make No Mistake. We were all in the room playing together.
Yeah, because I was like, how did you do that?
At Werewolves in London, we were all in the room playing together, and I sang it
Cool.
live in the studio.
That's because you do have. It's all
Awesome.
feels so. Even from Uptown Girl Blues, I'm like, is this a live
We did that.
album?
We did that all together in the room.
That's awesome.
Except for Jimmy Vivino.
Okay, I like that because it's to get that energy. I wonder this whole internet thing and people doing it over Zoom or like sending files. I can't even wrap my mind around it. I mean, I know to push the record button with you coming on, but that's it. To do that whole other part and still have that energy, but it's got all kinds of vibes and so different. It is eclectic. But Werewolves of London, is that something you in Hotel California? I'm like, wow, okay. And it's different. You've got like a whole different vibe to it. And I'm glad because we hear Hotel California on every radio station across the country. As we drive, that is one song. I think it's the most played song on the radio across the country is Hotel California. And I'm going through the album. I'm like, are you kidding me? Here it is again. And then I'm like, I'm going to listen to it. And I like it. So it's a good song. It's a good song.
When I did this record, because it's my 30th album.
Wow.
And, since I've come back from gospel, when I played gospel in 75, 85, and in 85 I started back doing secular music, and this is my 30th album since I started. When I came back, and so what I did was I asked a bunch of friends and ex-producers, musicians, relatives, and fans, people in the music industry like yourself, friends of mine. What do you guys hear me doing? And someone say, "Well, Joe, we like to hear some more acoustic, original stuff. Some do a couple acoustic, do some acoustic, or do some traditional stuff." Or, a lot of, and some say, "Well, a lot of people say, well, we like it when you take some other songs and flip them on the way you do them, your style. We like it when you did Guitar Gently Weeps on the Beatles blues album with a lot of people. We did that, and they said, well, we like when you did What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding, and why did you do that? And I said, well, because Nick Lowe asked me to sing that one, because Nick was on Demon when I was on Demon label in England in the 80s. I was on the Demon. I lived in Brighton in the mid 80s. So I was on the Demon label along with the Stiff Little Fingers and Nick Lowe and so Elvis Costello on the label. And so I got to do a lot of stuff, a lot of two-tone, they called that two-tone and ska and all that stuff that was hidden. So I got one foot in that. So it's no big stretch for me to do something like this. And so when it said Werewolves, I said, oh, well, that's cool. Or let me do it. Let's record it. And I'm gonna send it to Waddy and see what Waddy thinks. Because Waddy wrote it. Waddy helped write. And he said, "Oh, Joe, that's the way I wanted Warren to do it." And so he said, I said, well, put some loud on it, because I call Waddy plays loud. So Waddy put the slide guitar on. So that's Waddy and me
I
playing
love that.
together.
Mm.
And so the same with All She Wants to Do Is Dance. Because Koch more, he's in the immediate family with Waddy, and Koch is like, yeah, Joe, do the song. I'll do it with you. But they got busy. So Koch couldn't be on the record. But he's like, okay, same one with Make No Mistake. I was I forgot where I was in Australia somewhere, and I had a day off, and I had a dinner with my friend I've known for 30 something odd years, Ronnie, and so then I went to the Stone show, and Keith came in, and I said, man, I'm gonna do this song, and he says, oh, Joe, just make it your own, make it yours, Joe. So I like to have a connection with the people that I do their material. I really do. I like to have a connection, and I like to have their blessing,
Yeah.
and I like to have their
Sure.
opinion. I sent this song, Make No Mistake, to Keith. I
Yeah.
gave it to Keith, and I sent it to Steve Jordan too. So, and I sent Waddy World Wolves, and so the outlier is Hotel California, because if somebody said, well, pick something that's really iconic, like you did with While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And so I was thinking of my friend Etta James, and Etta, when she did Take It to the Limit, I love that song, the way she did it so much. And I got a chance to talk to her, and I said, Etta, why did you do it? And she said, Joe, that song sort of tells my story. And if you know anything about Etta always took it to the limit.
Yeah, she
always
did.
took it to the limit.
That
Yeah.
man.
And so,
Ooh.
and she said, Joe, a good song's a good song, and
Yeah.
which is true. And so when
This is true.
Hotel California came up, I said, okay, let's do it, but let's flip it around. Let's make maybe a little reggae-fied, a little bluesified, with a little bit of soul in it, less with the guitar army thing.
Yeah.
Just a little bit less with the guitar. You can't do that no better than Joe Washington did it. So I brought Morale Coryell, Larry Coryell's son. Morale played most of the harsh stuff, the hard stuff that Joe Walsh played. All that great stuff, and I played more legato, because I like to play like guitar like a voice. I don't like to play a lot of notes. I can, but I like to use my guitar as an extension of a vocal voice, and that's what I try to do. Now I can so-called shred, but that ain't my thing. There's a bunch of million young guys out there. That's their lane. Just it's like, you see a race and they say, on your march, get set, go. It's a long distance race, and the runners are pacing.
Yeah.
With shredding, the runners are running fast as
I
they
know.
can for 5 miles.
To me, a lot of that loses its soul for me. It does, and I like it, like what you're playing, because it's Peter Green to me is it's very that same kind of feel it. Let the music breathe, because a voice has to breathe.
A lot of people they don't let music, a lot of times, let music breathe now. It to me, especially a solo, is like a conversation. And in a conversation, you have the beginning, you have the middle where you maybe get a little passionate, and you speak a little faster, and at the end where you sum up. But nobody has a conversation like this. Hey Lisa, what you been doing yesterday?
Like,
There are people that do talk like that, but maybe they had some substances, and we won't get into that.
yeah.
Doesn't that end with Sold to America?
Well, but
Isn't
does this come with your background in gospel? Because I mean, Nancy will remember this. When we first got to this country, I discovered BET, the TV channel, and man, every Sunday you'll find me in front of the TV, because all the gospel music, and I'm like, you know what, this is getting down, and it's like the passion. It's so pure. To me, it's hand in hand with the blues. There's that.
Well,
It's
it's
this real
a little
raw
different.
passion.
It's a little different, like we used to say, in gospel, you singing about the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In blues, you sing about your baby. In
Yeah.
gospel, you're gonna get your reward in the by and by. In blues, we want our reward now.
Yeah.
Okay, because like Peter Tosh said, like Peter Tosh said, everybody's talking about the God up in the sky, well, the living God is right here on the earth.
Yeah.
Peter Tosh wrote that, and get up, stand up for your rights.
Yeah.
And a lot of people may get offended. Well, you don't think that you're going to get your just rewards up in earth. And when you go to church on Sunday, don't you feel closer to God and things? And I just say, like Martin Luther King said, you know, you go to church on Sunday, that's the most segregated place in the world. You know,
No kidding.
so why you
No
gonna try to
kidding.
hold that up to me, man? I don't know.
So,
And I've been in church, believe me. And it was only one. I went to Catholic school. I'll tell you something. You want to laugh?
Lisa
My
went to
dad.
Catholic
My
school.
knuckles got whacked in
He
Catholic
got rapped
school.
on the knuckles all the time with the
You,
nuns.
you got off easy. I went to Catholic school. Listen, and so to go to Catholic school, you had to go to mass in the morning, as you remember. Some mornings you had to go to mass. But I also had to attend Catholic school on a Catholic church on Sunday morning. But my grandmother insisted that I go to Baptist church on Sunday evening and
cool.
afternoon. So I got a double dose of all
Yeah,
kind
but
of
Baptists
music.
know how to sing. They know how to sing and do the music.
Well,
you know,
I tell everybody this. Is just this. In each culture, people worship differently. One thing I found about in the Baptist church is that you will never have in some places you have to go and they'll give you a hymnal. And when I was going to Catholic school, we had to learn a little Latin, so I had to learn what Ecum Spirit 220 and certain things meant. When to answer the priest, you know, because it's called their version of call and response. But if you go to Baptist church, you don't need no hymnal. You don't need nothing.
Nope.
By the time they start singing and people get the Holy Ghost, you all into it. You're all in. Okay. You don't need nobody. You don't have to be the same color. You don't have to be the same nationality, anything. You just say, oh my God, it's just coming. Oh yeah, let's get in it.
You just know when we lived in South Africa. Yeah.
I was going to say, church is really funny. My parents kept moving at midnight once or twice every 2 years. It was like, we're always moving at midnight. And my mom and dad never went to church, but they always sent us, and there were 6 of us, to the nearest church. So we've been to all kinds of churches. And I just remember the one church, like the priest or pastor would say something, it was Lutheran. He would say something, and then you all stood up and said, this is most certainly true. And then you had to sit down, and it was up and down like a you-know-who's doors. Yeah. It was like, couldn't keep up with stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. I never knew what it really meant. I just knew if somebody stands, you stand, and try to sit down before them.
Say, this is most certainly true. Talk about brainwashing.
This is most certainly true.
Sorry.
What is that?
It's like this, you will learn this. But in South Africa, I went to boarding school after being on the road with Nancy for a year, 2.5 years, 2 years, whatever it was. Yeah. Go to boarding school. It was the beginning of high school. And boarding school, you had to go to church on Sunday. And we were in Grahamstown, which was 50, something like 50 boarding schools.
52 churches in the
50 churches, all boarding schools, and we had Rhodes University, which was the most liberal university. So if you went over to the university, they had pot. If you went to the church, you had to go on Sunday or get caught. But I learned how to hide myself in a closet. But anyway, I went to every single church. I'm like, if you're going to force me to go to church, nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to every single one. And I always got in trouble. But the Baptist, if you go to the Baptist church, you got in, they sang, they did music, it was elevated, and afterwards it got out before any other church did on Sunday, and all the kids had time to hide behind the bushes and smoke cigarettes. So that's why I went to the Baptist. But it's but the music, that's the thing. Like, when you drive, for us driving, we always try to get into the local music, local stations, and sometimes you have the ones that are just repeating a playlist. Yeah. But you go through like Mississippi, Alabama, certain parts of Florida, you start getting into the gospel, and I don't care if it's black or white. Man, it's powerful, and it is just I dig it. So what led you into gospel and then out?
Well, culture, it's sort of, and my mother and father being from the South, dad from Mississippi, mom from Arkansas, my grandmother being from Mississippi, my great grandmother when I was a kid, her grandmother being a slave and all, and me having, they were illiterate. So when I was, since my dad, he sent me to Catholic school, I learned to read pretty early. So I would read the Bible to my grandmother, his mother, and I'd read the Bible to my mother's mother, who's mainly Native American. And so I got I think the reason that they were in church was because for them coming down south and the situations that they all came out of, it was cathartic for them. They had a place that they could go on a weekday and just let out all the pent up frustrations they had been going through for 6 days. So, and also, to be quite honest, for African Americans, a church was also a form of militancy. You know, the church, the Underground Railroad was littered by churches. So when we worshiped, it was something different than when other people worship. Just to be quite honest about it. So when you see Aretha Franklin, the film of her in Reverend Cleveland's church, and you see them having to sit her off by herself after she sings certain passages. What happens? You start singing certain things. You start thinking of your grandmama and your great grandmama, or you might think of your uncle who got lynched, like my uncle did. But she thought knowing Aretha, since she's 3 or 4 years old, she was singing for Martin Luther King, which people did not know. You know, she was a part of the struggle all of her career, and you had all these emotions going through her. You know, Aretha Franklin is living history of none other. There's nobody. I don't know. Somebody got to name them. White, black, green, and yellow. That has the history Aretha Franklin has. Now that the movie has come out showing that she had that kind of connection to all those different parts of American life, I think it helped keep Aretha grounded. You know, it really helped her when she needed to be grounded, and that's something that you fall back on. What I did was I always played popular music with my cousins, even when I was playing in church when I was a young boy. So we just got real popular enough that we just started making money playing music, you know. But I never was, after going to Catholic church on Sunday and going to Baptist church on Sunday evening, I had enough religion to last me 25 lifetimes, just to be quite honest about it. But so when I gave my notice to my gospel group, it had nothing to do with me getting tired of, you know, anything there. I mean, I take all religion with a grain of salt. The word is the word. Okay, I don't know who wrote it. I don't know who did, but I know that if people believe, that's fine, wonderful. I don't believe everything I'm told. I believe half of what I see. You know what I'm saying? So when I get one version of Christianity from Catholic Church, another version of Christianity from the Baptist Church, another version of Christianity from the, you know what? Yeah. Everybody sort of, you know what I mean? So I make my own decision. So one thing I know is that when they say, well, what is your religion, Joe? Music's my religion.
Yeah.
That is my religion. I've seen it work in, like you just said, it works in rest homes. It'll work with people with Alzheimer's. It works. I've seen music turn enemies into friends. Okay. I've seen music, seen 4 people walk in the door, got nothing in common, leave with arm around each other of all different colors and backgrounds, long as they're talking about music. The minute you start talking about politics, the minute you start talking about race, the minute you start talking about race, the minute you start talking about a status quo, money and things, the minute you start talking about other things, that's when things sort of everybody sort of picks their lane, you know. Yeah. But when you get to music, music is the lane that brings us all together. And so that's, for me, it's something to always remember, is that music is a unifier. Like Johnny Hooker said, music's a healer and a unifier. You know, I play music for my cats. I play music for the dog. I play music for the deer. I play music for, I'm serious. I love that. And literally animals are so in tune. I know you've seen the video of the guy in Thailand. He plays the piano and the monkeys come down. The elephants come down. The crocodiles.
Well, where do you think, you know, but music, I mean, if you listen to the birds in the morning, rhythm. Where do you think we started getting like, oh, we can use our voice like birds? You know, we can do, you know, there's a connection with us, with nature and music. And like, I think about, what if we woke up one day and there's no birds singing? Like, that's got to suck.
That would suck.
That would suck.
Well, I think what it is number one, what I noticed is that we all live through certain frequencies,
Mm.
frequencies. And the frequencies are this. If you put on an LP means long playing, long playing. If you put on a CD, what does that mean? Compact disc. So if you put on Duke Ellington and his orchestra of 28 people, you put them on a long playing, you're going to hear the highs and the lows of the clarinet in the back room. When you put on a CD, it's compressed. You're going to miss the highs and the lows. When you put on an LP, you put on A Day in the Life, that song.
Yes.
Where McCartney's directing the orchestra. You hear every instrument in the orchestra.
When it
You
starts
hear
doing
everything.
that twirl.
You even hear the shh. You can hear everything going. On a CD, like Paul said, we didn't make Day in the Life to be on a CD. It's too big. Don't put it on, man, because it makes it so small. I think what we hear when we walk out the door, we hear all the frequencies of life. We hear our life in frequencies. We don't hear our life in a vote. We don't hear our life in one single prayer. Because when you hear all the birds singing over there, you hear the birds singing over there. Every morning, I listen to these birds here. This bird starts singing, and like clockwork, this other bird answers them.
Yeah.
So what I used to do, this bird would start singing, and I would answer.
Yeah.
And then the other bird would answer me, because I got a high voice. I got a high voice. And birds don't sing lyrics. Whatever they're doing, they understand each other. Believe me. And crows, they understand each other. That's why they're so smart.
Oh man, they're smart.
They're crafty as a day. So I think the frequencies, and when you hear the frequencies and the sounds, it like Stevie Wonder says, it is the sounds and the kill lights. It really is.
Yeah.
And if you open yourself up to that, you will receive so much joy. And it's like the experts of that are indigenous people of all countries. Indigenous people are so in tune, especially American Indians here. Africans and African. My wife went to the Gora Gora Crater when she was 17, 18, 19
Oh, cool.
years old.
Yeah.
Okay. She was accepted when she went to Kenya. She went to the Maasai tribe. 17, 18 years old.
Awesome.
She got to be there where life began. She got to hear the elephant tiptoeing through the campsite
that's
so as
our
to
life.
not wake you up.
That's it.
That's us.
Smell the lion. You know what I'm
That's
talking
it.
about. She could smell the lions. Doing the urinating a half mile away, and them doing it.
It's 2 miles.
You can smell. Your sense of smell comes alive in Africa. It really does. It does. Nancy did a speech once because she used to work with a lady called Joy Adamson. The movie Elsa the Lion was made off of her, and all of this other stuff. And so she worked for her, and she was doing a speaking engagement, and I don't know what happened to all these women. Nancy turned around and says, and you could smell a rhino pee from so long,
2
and
miles.
So we were at some blues. It was at a blues fest. We were at a blues festival, and some lady comes walking up, and she goes, "You're the rhino pee lady."
I'm like, oh, thanks.
So now Nancy's known as rhino pee lady.
Rhino pee.
But it's
Well,
really true. But that's and I think what you're saying about when you put an album in. And you put the needle on the record. There's an intention when you put it on. You don't want to scratch it. You have that little bit of, you got to be gentle. And then
it's warm.
You're in to listen. And that's the thing music does. It's, it's like observation. When you take a walk, you're either going to take a walk and be like the guitarists that are on the race, or are you going to walk and saunter? Are you going to look at the birds, the plants, or maybe the brick walls you're walking through in the downtown, whatever it is? Are you going to observe and take it in? Music, when you put an album on, that's an experience. And you're going to sit down, listen, or you're going to boogie. You're going to pour some wine and boogie around your house or whatever you're going to do. But it's an experience. And I see vinyls coming back. Your album, Eclectic-Electric, that's going to be in vinyl too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because it's got to be, you got to have the experience of the needle on the album.
Well, another thing it does too is that when you put it like that, if you draw a line of dichotomy, you could say, you remember when we used to wait to read a book? Like I couldn't wait to read 1984.
George Orwell.
George Orwell would only tell you so much. You would have to say, man, this ain't gonna really happen. this is, and you know what? Here we be.
Hello.
You know,
Hello.
and so when you get that type of, you have to use your critical thinking. I call it independent thought, as well as critical thinking. But you also have to have some vision. George Orwell gave everybody a vision of what 1984 was. I'm sure I didn't live when George Orwell wrote that book. I wasn't alive. I'm sure people gave him holy hell. This will never happen.
Oh, I bet.
Big Brother will never.
I bet.
And music is like that too. This will never happen. Oh, you put that in a song, that will never happen. Da, da, da. And it turns out to be true. So when you put that thing on that vinyl, we'd all have to sort of try to get into that vision, you know. So when you would read a book, so what do you have now? You have compact discs, and you have the internet for your education. So the internet is your education, and the internet is your news. And if the internet's your education and your news, and the guy that is running Facebook comes on TV and pretty much says, you know what? I don't know what's on the damn thing, and I don't care. I just want my money. I just want my money. So, you know, go back to reading the book. Go back to reading the book. Like, I got a bunch of them right there, and my record player, my 2 record players are right there.
Do you remember as a kid? Like, I remember, you know, Nancy having tapes, and I used to play doctor to the tapes. You know, you had to, put them in the freezer, cut off. You know, if something's stretching, I'd play doctor, and I remember the first time doing that, going, God, I can't ruin this baby. This is the only one we have of this, and, you know, and you make mixtapes and whatever. But I remember when it came to the albums, it was a big deal because I had to learn and have permission to play them because these are special. It was like having to learn. And the first time you put that needle on the album, I remember you got the shaky hand. I had the shaky hand.
No, she's all like that.
I'm scared. I don't want to ruin the album, you know. So Nancy, I remember going, this is like diamonds. And I think it was, you know, this, and so it became this special thing. And then as you grew older, then you're allowed to do it, you know, but you kept it special.
No, you wasn't.
And if you had friends over, they were not allowed to touch the record player.
I had 5 older brothers and sisters. They wasn't about me letting me touch their new Temptation records, or they didn't know. It was like, no, I'll put it on for you.
Yeah,
I feel like, you better be here when I'm listening. But if I come here and I see that record scratch, me and you gonna have a problem because I know how you is.
Then we get to the era of scratching the record, right? Who thought of that? Who would have thought we would go into scratching? See,
I don't like that.
Talk about
that hurts me.
No, but the scratching of records becomes a whole new music form. It's a whole new thing.
Care.
So
it hurts. It hurts me.
She still wants to slap my hands, but
no, I don't want to hear the scratchy.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a cool conversation. I think, did we cover everything? I mean, we even got Zuckerberg in there.
Ew.
Well, I didn't mention his name.
I didn't
mention your name. You don't need my promotion.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, everyone, again, Eclectic-Electric is out November 12th, 2021 on vinyl and digital. So go get it, pre-order it. Keep up with Joe at Joe-Louis-Walker.com and us at BigBlendRadio.com. Thanks so much, Joe. We're going to play The Werewolves of London.
Thank you both. It was a joy talking to you.
You too.
And I would like to, when this is over, can you leave this on? I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure. Okay, hold on one second. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I was going to say, wait, bye, boys and girls.
The streets of Soho in the rain. He was looking for a place called the Soulful. dish of beef chow mein. Werewolves of London. Werewolves of London. You hear him howling around your kitchen door. You better not let him in. Little old lady got mutilated late last night. Werewolves of London again. Werewolves of London. Werewolves of London. He's a hairy-handed chick who ran amok and kicked